Tides are influenced by the distance and positions of the Sun, Moon, and Earth. When the Moon is in line with the Sun and Earth during new moon and full moon phases, the gravitational pull is greater and we have what are called spring tides, where high tides are extra high and low tides are extra low. When the Moon is in a 90-degree angle to the Sun during quarter moon phases, we have what are called neap tides, where there is not as much of a difference between high and low tides. Watch some of this video at a salt marsh in Wachapreague and think about the following questions. Was the camera out of the water the entire time? Did you notice any animals in the video? Were they out during a higher tide or a lower tide? Did you see the moon appear at night? In this time-lapse video at Wachapreague, you can see the tides in action. At some points during the video, you can see where the tides are extremely high, going right over the camera or flooding the marsh grasses. Looking back at the moon phases for August of 2019, we would find that there was a super new moon, which means that our tides would be much higher than normal and explains why the camera went completely underwater. At a low tide, you can see mud flats and some new oyster reef substrate that our marine restoration team is installing. Because the movement of the Earth and Moon are reliable, scientists can predict what the tide levels will be. Most areas on the east coast of the United States have 2 high tides and 2 low tides of similar size every day about 6 hours apart. Find a salt marsh near you and see if you can tell what the tide is doing. If you look at the water for long enough, you can see what direction the water is moving and get an idea if the tide is rising or falling. Weather events can also impact the tidal cycle. Heavy tropical storm or hurricane force winds coming from the east or northeast push water up onto the land, sometimes eliminating the low tide. Low pressure systems can also cause tides that are higher than predicted. These weather events can often flood our roads and wash over our islands. To see how sea level rise, tides, and storm events might affect where you live or the roads around you in the future, visit the Nature Conservancy's Coastal Resilience tool at maps.coastalresilience.org/Virginia. Here's an activity you can do at home or out by the marsh. All it requires is a piece of paper and a pencil and knowing a family member or a friend who uses the water a lot, whether it be for recreational, like going out to the beach on their boat or kayaking around on our marsh creeks, or somebody who does it as a way of life for work. So somebody who's a fisherman or a crabber or a clammer or in the oyster industry. And you're going to ask them some questions about how tides might affect their job or affect them going out on their boats. Ask them some questions like, do you even check the tides before you go out? And why? Ask them, have you seen any drastic changes in the tides over the past however many years? Maybe it's good to know if they've ever gotten stuck on a mud flat before. I know I have. Or whether or not they've been able to float over the marsh grasses because the tides have been really, really high. Think of some other curious questions that you can ask this person to keep the conversation going. Learning about tides is a really important part of our way of life here on the Eastern Shore, and so it's good to kind of dive deeper into tides to learn a little bit more about them and how they impact what we can do out here. For more information, you can research yourself some answers to the questions that you asked your family member or friend, or you can go to tidesandcurrents.noaa.gov for more information about the tides and currents, as well as finding moon phase data. Enjoy!